All right then.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first webinar back after our summer recess. We are expecting quite a big house today, so if you bear with us, please, we'll make a start at midday or just after. Howard's going to be explaining the survey and so on in a few moments' time, but in the meantime, while we wait for the others, you might like to scan the QR code. We have got a bit of a survey for you today, I think 4 questions. So just while we wait, if you scan the QR code or go straight to slido.com with the code hashtag LM080923, perhaps you'd be good enough to answer those 4 questions ahead of the presentation, which will be coming up very, very shortly. So there we are. Hope you've all had a good summer. And you're now delighted to be back fully primed and ready for the first webinar of our series. Do you know we've been going since March 2020? Can't believe it. We've been going for 3.5 years doing these online webinars. Does time fly when you're having a good time? So where are we time-wise now? Just about coming up to midday. I think we'll roll over John, Howard, Julie by just sort of 60 seconds or so, because I can see people coming in all the time. Some phases or names that I recognise. My good friend Mike Ormisher, welcome to you. Too many names to mention all of them. They're scrolling at a pace at the moment, scrolling at some pace. Got about 50 people in the house at the moment. We are expecting more than that, so just bear with us, folks. Once again, for those that have just come in, welcome. While you're waiting, if you'd kindly just go to that QR code, we've got a survey of 4 questions for you, or indeed, if you want to go direct to slido.com, hashtag LM080923 would be good. People still pouring in. So just bear with us, folks. We need to let them all in, if you don't mind. Obviously, a very important and interesting topic today. So just bear with us while we let everybody in, please.
Whilst we're waiting, I'm sitting in a rather nice, hot, sweaty Taunton at the moment. If you want to let us know where you're from and what the weather's like, please do that. It's always interesting for people to know about each other in the room. So you can use the chat box to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Howard. That's a great idea. Yeah, it would be interesting for Julie probably to see where people are from, both company-wise and geographically. Greg Watson. Good to see you, Greg. That's good. Look, I think we'll make a start, if you don't mind. We are expecting others, but in fairness to those of you that are in the room, I think we'll make a start. So officially now, good afternoon. We've just passed midday. Welcome back to the Constructing Excellence CIOB and STA range of webinars, which we've been running now for about 3.5 years. I am Andrew Carpenter. I am Chief Executive of Constructing Excellence in the Midlands, and also I'm Chief Executive of the Structural Timber Association. Delighted to be joined today by Julie Bragula, who I've been working very closely with over the last couple of years on the subject matter that she's going to be presenting today, which is all about a fire safety hub. Before I introduce Julie, however, Howard, would you just like to say a few words on the survey and on the way we're going to take questions and so on through Slido? Thank you.
Delighted, Andrew. Hi. For those of you who are familiar with the webinars, we normally run a poll. You can get into the poll on Slido by going to slido.com, #LM and just use today's date. Many of you have started, or 8 people have already done the poll, but I'm going to run through the poll in a minute with you. Please participate. This is the first time we've actually used a couple of open questions. So we won't be giving the answers until afterwards. So you may just like to think about, if you haven't put something in an open question, what you can do is put it in the Q&A, which you'll also find in Slido. Please use Q&A in Slido if you can remember, and you can use it. As it is a central source, we can bring it up on the screen easily so everyone can see the question. And there is time at the end of today's presentation, so please think of questions. So I'm going to now quickly run through the 4 questions. Very simply, question 1, do your projects regularly consider timber products and solutions? Do you want to put the questions up on the screen, John, so people can see them, please? Hopefully we can share them. Yep. So it's a simple answer, yes or no. 10 people have already answered. You'll see in the top there's a little 10, so 10 have completed it. So please put your answer in. Now, the next question, what in your opinion, so let's put up question 2. What in your opinion are the largest barriers to using timber? There's probably a 4-letter word beginning with F that I could think of, but I'm sure there are many more. So please put those in, and if you forget, as I say, you could always put your opinion as a question, and indeed we can also bring you in if you really want to be seen and vocal on this later on. So let's have question 3, which is a simple yes and no answer. So do you feel well informed about how to consider fire safety when using and designing with timber? Simple yes and no answer. Now I can see 14 people have answered. We've got nearly 80 people in the room, so it would be nice if we could get 50% of you to actually share your thoughts and views. So you will not have to complete this before we move on. You can complete that during Julie's presentation. So please, let's see if we can get 50% of the room participating. And the last question, please, John. Where do you generally obtain your information from? So it's simply you enter a word or a number of words. You can put a couple in, I would think, with whatever. So please do that. We're getting up to 19. So if I'm going to reach my goal, we'll need another 20 on top. So, so I'm going to hand back to Andrew now and see you later. Many thanks.
Thanks, Howard. Well, it's good to see so many people in the room, and I think that's an indication of the importance of the topic that we're going to talk about today. As I mentioned just now, I've been working with Julie in her position within Swedish Wood. I've been representing the STA, and my good friend Dave Hopkins has been working alongside me from TD UK. And the 3 organisations have been working for 2 years to come up with this fire hub, which is critically important to us as a sector. Particularly so, many of you will know that there is a government working group in place. It commenced in December 2021, so it's nearly 2 years old now. But the government acknowledge that if they're going to achieve net zero for the UK by 2050, they have to safely increase the amount of timber we use in construction, because construction, as we know, is responsible for 40% of all emissions. So it's vitally important that we use more timber. But to do that, we need to remove the barriers. And one of the barriers, the 4-letter word that Howard was referring to, I hope was fire and not something else. And that's why we're here today, because there are solutions. And what the Fire Hub that Julie's going to be speaking to you about today is a one-stop shop. It's one portal where you can go for your answers when you're designing in timber. So without further ado, Julie, I'm going to mute myself. You'll be pleased to know. I'm going to turn my camera off, and I'm going to ask you to take over. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you all for being here. It's great, some known names and some new names, so it's brilliant to be with you. So thank you for making time during your lunchtime. So what we want to do is I have a couple of slides prepared. We're not going to be sort of necessarily spending lots of time on each, but it's really to give you a flavour of the resource and what it's trying to do, and the fact that it's a live resource, and we're really looking for feedback and input, and be able to adjust it according to that. So I'm going to just share my screen, and there will be then time at the end to maybe discuss some questions or some answer, things that you might want to bring up. And I'm really looking forward to hearing some of the feedback we're receiving for the poll as well. So yes, I'm just joining Andrew and how to say, please, the poll is brilliant because there's so many of you, it'd be really meaningful. So I'm quickly going to share my screen, she says, and then hopefully if one of you could just confirm that you're seeing that would be perfect. Can you? Yep.
That's perfect, Julia.
Super.
Yeah, good, Julie, from here.
Great. So this is it. I would just want to give you maybe a little bit of an introduction to me. So for you who don't necessarily have met me before, Julie Brégula, I was previously director at the BRE, specifically the Fire and Building Technology Group, and sort of been supporting a startup since 2021, and also working with the timber industry specifically on a couple of strategic issues. I started out in really traditional civil structural engineering, sort of did quite a lot of work on lightweight construction, and then really sort of did quite a lot of in-depth work actually around regulation, supporting standards, performance validation and compliance. And I think I've met some of you via this route. So I'm the editor and curator of this Knowledge Hub. I'm not the only person. I've not written it in that sort of sense, but I've really been sort of working with a really talented team to bring together some of this knowledge here around wood in the built environment, and specifically around fire safety. I normally bring up this slide again because I love these illustrators, two Italians, but they sort of talk about topics in very succinct way, and sort of this is film in 5 seconds, and I'm absolutely convinced you guys can guess what movie that is. And fire is not one of those topics, that you could be so easily summarizing in such an eloquent way. It's a key aspect in design, especially for the built environment and for buildings in specific. It's more than any one design criteria, I think, touching almost any design decision, requires really close attention, also to detailing and execution. And for me, really, the big distinguisher is that it's owned so much through life by occupants, by owners through the lifetime of the building. So it sort of really spans the entire life cycle of what we provide. So really, from materials to details, from layouts to long-term performance, it really is covering each one of those things. I think, well, it's of course mandatory, but it's also a huge opportunity for designers, and embracing the principles of fire safety really does make for good designs which are robust and lasting. So to be able to do this sort of fire website and the way we laid it out, we hope will make a contribution to that. I think what is so difficult about fire, and we sort of touched about a few things already just now, but it's just, it has so many interfaces that sort of contribute both to reassure the stakeholders that their assets are safe, but also to deliver on the expectations when it comes to product, the way we build it through process, or you, the professionals, and everybody interacting and delivering that, the people. The expectation we sort of got regulated, I think, although they are very agnostic to the solution or the material we use for that. And so really what we're hoping to provide with the website here is some insight, some support about the principles of fire safety and how available timber products and processes align with those, and hopefully bring you some state-of-the-art information. So even me, that sort of is really quite involved in some of this, I struggle sometimes to find a one-go place to sort of see it all in one place. What's the ongoing research? Are there sort of some outcomes already or not? Or when are we expecting those? So hopefully this site provides some of that. And that's really been our aim and hope for this site, that to sort of give a one-stop shop, which is sort of one way of saying it, but really a robust and comprehensive, credible, easy to use, but also independent and independently verified portal for everybody that would like to use timber and also would like to understand how it fits with the overarching fire safety design principles. It's written primarily for the UK, but it aligns with European practice. But you know, when we do refer to regulation or we do refer to standards, we tend to sort of refer to we refer to the UK best practice standards and approved documents. I've just sort of put a little arrow at the top, which is sort of the three funding partners. The Swedish Wood, Andrew has already explained and introduced, Timber Development UK, and of course the Structural Timber Association. I'm gonna pepper the website address regularly for you, so hopefully you'll be able to sort of have already looked at it or will look at it and might remember it in future as well. So when we were starting to sort of really think about what to do and what would be useful, we really were asking ourselves the question, well, who needs what, right? You know, some people have timber experience, some people have no timber experience, some people use it in small projects, some in large. And so really we've realized quite quickly that really it is sort of an industry-wide sort of need, and there were various stakeholders and they had very different needs. So that normally everybody that is sort of in this business will say, well, that's a recipe for disaster. Why would you do that? You need to home in. And so what you see on the site is really a sort of trying to pay homage to the fact that you are the user of the site and you can drill down or stay at certain levels within. And this is really, sorry, can I just trying to get to the next slide? I don't want to do that. Here we go. That is really what this sort of is trying to explain. So the website is layered. So for all of the topics that we're going to be going through in a minute, and I'll give you an overview, you'll have sort of an initial layer, which we call layer 1, but that's sort of introduction of the principle, which is agnostic to the material, agnostic to the solution you're going to be using, but really trying to explain what the principle is trying to achieve. In the second layer, you can then see how some of the applicable standards apply, and we've made those wood specific so that you can see further detail. Again, as you go deeper or layer it out, and I'll show you some examples, we get some time to have a look at the website, hopefully, and I can share my screen quickly to show you this sort of for one topic, but you can then unclick specific detail. It's sort of also a little bit of an unwritten contract between the user and of course the information, by which of course competency is required as sort of some of this information unfolds as we go through. And so hopefully if something then doesn't make sense at a specific stage, that might be the time to sort of really engage the supply chain a little bit more widely to sort of work through what good looks like and what we might do. And then I think the next big question we ask ourselves, you know, who needs what, of course, but they need it at different places and different times. So the when. And so really we do hope that the website is going to be viewed in sort of these sort of various stages of your project work, whether you are a very specific, detailed and competent and specific designer around timber specifically, a supply chain partner, you know, wherever you are in this chain. But for us, really, we sort of covered information and topic around, you know, the concept design, stage 2, where really you're sort of thinking about your fire strategy. For sort of complex and high risk projects, of course, your qualitative design review comes in here. You sort of agree things with statutory authorities, for example, what elements, if any, shall be developed, and maybe some performance-based or performance objectives that sort of get developed and communicated at this space. And so we're hopefully you'll see lots and lots of interacting and useful content on the website for that. Again, for sort of RIBA stage 3, you know, agreeing assessment methods, input parameters, scenario, design details, all of this sort of stuff in that stage. Again, communication with statutory authorities, internal layouts, opportunities and potentials for that, you know, this sort of alignment phase. That's really, again, you'll find information generically, but also for timber specifically on the website. And then, of course, the fourth stage, as you all know, the detailed analysis, the report, the results, all of that sort of stuff. There'll be information for you for that as well. So hopefully you'll find that useful. I mean, really a short introduction only as to what it covers, and I'm just watching the time to make sure we might have a little bit of time so I can show you this for one example. But that's ultimately how the site is built. And so you have an introduction, so this about fire safety blob at the very top, you know, where we really sort of, some of you will know this by heart, right? So you can skip some of these bits and pieces, but it's really trying to explain, you know, how do we see timber in construction more generally, some examples, some of the products that we see, and some of the various systems. Then, you know, fire safety in buildings generally and agnostically, what is that like? What are we looking for? What's the applicable regulations here? And then you see that also in the next chapter, where we're sort of really trying to show the interaction between Europe and the UK, and sort of how that's built and some of the sort of paradigms and principles we designed to, regardless of material. And then really we've sort of introduced some of the design approaches available, and I've got a slide on that just to give you a little bit of an orientation of how we've organized things, but really for the more complex projects to the right, to simpler projects to the left. And then really those two underpinning foundational principles around how we sort of design for fire safety, and that's sort of all of the known subjects that we all know about: load-bearing walls and floors, the connections, reaction to fire, external walls and surfaces, as well as separating wall and floor assemblies. And then to the right, everything that manages fire safety during design, build, and in the finalized building. And we have things in here like cavity barriers and fire stops, fire safety during construction, you know, some sort of thoughts on information management and the opportunities in that, and also, you know, some very timber specific information on that included. Again, this is not a news reveal here, so this is really trying to sort of summarize best practice. It's trying to really show what is the stuff that we know, and there are specific pages for where there's ongoing research, for example, just to sort of create a little bit of a central focus point, so people can sort of say, listen, we're doing some more work on this, and this is some interim reports, for example, or a final report to read up on. But some of the work that might be pre-standardization or development work at this stage. The why, I'm not going to dwell on that too much. It's just really why I use this slide normally is just to sort of highlight how many fire events we have a year. So this is just the year ending in September 2022. So over 600,000 fire events that we saw in that year, with a 16% increase in the year before. So really, you know, this is sort of dwelling fires are a big proportion of that, about 40%. And then, of course, lots and lots of sort of other fires as well going on. You know, we saw sort of an uptick in secondary fires, you know, most likely linked to the hotter summer in 2022. I think all of that sort of, for me, leads to, you know, sort of the agnostically, what do we know about, you know, what happens? You know, mostly we see cooking appliances being the source of ignition, especially in dwelling fires. And I think this one is really interesting as well, because it does speak a little bit to our way of managing fire safety within construction. And that's really around, you know, showing that where the fire damage spread generally, you know, so 14.2% the approximate area of fire damage in a building in 2022. You know, and I think the sort of 3 bullet points for me are quite interesting, you know, that sort of 1/3 of all dwelling fires have no fire damage at all. And that really the next third is limited to this first item, ignited, and really limited to the room of origin. And that, you know, 4% are fires, which we would term large fires, where really they sort of spread beyond the floor of origin. You know, you know all of this, of course, yourselves. I think it brings really into focus how important this sort of fire design approaches are in making this happen and improving on this year on year as we can. And just to give you an example, we've included information here on sort of research work to show exactly what happens in timber structure specifically. You know, where do we see fire spread paths happening, and you will get sort of a specific link to sort of, for example, a publication like this to sort of really inform your thinking as you sort of design with timber specifically. I'm just looking at the time quickly to make sure I'm sort of good on time. That looks good. So really, we're not going to spend loads of time talking about this. It's just really to let you know that all of this is covered in the website, really. So we really talk about some of the concepts of what we're trying to achieve, and we talk fire safety to achieve some of those statistics and better of what you've seen just previously. And then also the objectives that one might have when designing for fire safety. Again, all of this is not necessarily just for timber, it's generally applicable. And then we really do drill in a little bit further on some of the information and the concepts that you have available if you are interested in using timber specifically around evacuation strategies, suppression and containment systems. We will introduce on that and some of the sort of underpinning processes that help with those achieving those principles. We really bring into focus some of those aims that every fire safety strategy and every bit of structure that we commit and build and hand over is trying to do, and you will see those intermesh in the website and some of those very specific design principles and ways of designing with timber to bring that. And these objectives, interestingly, are completely work across all countries in Europe and actually worldwide. They form the basis of both prescriptive and performance-based codes. And you know, as you know, the must that people shall be able to leave the building or be rescued, the consideration of safety for the rescue teams, our approach to load-bearing structures having to resist fire for required minimum durations. These durations can be different depending on application, to really limit the generation and spread of fire and smoke within a building, and the limitation or the absolute control of the spread of fire to neighboring buildings. Sort of those sort of principles underpinning everything that we see in this. And then some of these objectives and management strategies we won't go through in detail, but are covered within the site and with timber specifically in mind. So really from, you know, preventing fire ignition, managing its impact when it does happen, and the various components that help contribute to that. So you see that here, I've sort of refreshed you on that, but you see all of those represented in that slide again, which is how the slide is built. So when we go on the website in a minute, you can see this sort of web map, and you can click on any of those to sort of get into the more detailed information after that. The next slide I wanted to just introduce to you, which is some of, you know, just the range that is covered from, you know, what design approach you might choose depending on the complexity of your building and some of the property protection requirements that you see and some of the firefighting strategies that might influence that. So from the low rise, so we sort of defined that as sort of 11 meters top story to top floor, to the mid rise with some complexity, to the tall with some complexity, and then, you know, the ones with lots of complexity and tall, right? So so that's really what we're trying to show, and then you'll see some very specific routes and some very specific tools available depending on where you find yourself on this sort of range of design through your own projects. We cover all timber construction types, so the heavy timber stuff as well as the lightweight construction. We sort of really talk about the various forms of fire developments that happen in those, what you must consider in each. We go from sacrificial lining to encapsulation and exactly some of those concepts available, and also how they sort of work with timber specifically and some examples. We have included information from Europe that is sort of course, not available for the UK per se, but really to guide your thinking and also see a little bit what's available elsewhere, and then think about how that relates to the built projects that you have on in the UK and within the UK requirements. We do cover various compartment fire dynamics, and there will also be information and how to handle that in the various stages through the REBA stages, depending on what you're working with generally. So hopefully you'll find that really helpful, but also maybe if you're a supply chain partner, to communicate a little bit more proactively with some of your stakeholders through this process. Detailing and execution, it's one of my very big, always for me, a really big topic. Having a good solution is one thing, detailing it properly is so important, and then making sure execution and maintenance happens is just so crucial. So really a chapter on cavity barriers and fire stops, like how do we do that? What's the impact on the performance on the system, the interactions we see there, some sort of good detailing and best practice, some really good referencing into best practice documents from around the industry. So again, we're hoping this website will act as a spine so that you can really understand what we're trying to achieve, and then go to really good best practice documentation from other entities to bring that through and really give a sort of concerted picture of how it all fits together. Then really some sort of introduction around products and evidence of performance and what you must be looking for if you're looking to achieve certain outcomes, and what might be differences and similarities to the situation you're facing. I will stress here, it's not a cookbook. So you won't be able to just open the book and say, I've got this particular application, how can I design that in Timber? I think it's too complex for that, the topic, but also all of the projects you get involved with. But we're hoping that it sort of covers this information and allows you to sort of drill down, find references, and ultimately very good guidance that can be applied to your project specifically. So this is where it is. I thought at this point, if I stop sharing, and we might have a quick look at the website together. So I'll just stop sharing in a minute, and hopefully I can see you all. Is everybody still alive? Is that good? Okay, everybody's still there with me? Great.
Okay, Julie.
I will just quickly share my screen, Andrew, and we're going to have a quick look at the website together.
Yeah. Sorry, I had problems getting back online. I don't know.
Oh, did you? Oh, we have you back. That's great. So I will just quickly share my screen one more time, everybody, so that you can just see it in action, and then hopefully we'll be able to have some questions, or could have a closer.
We'll go to the survey first.
Okay.
While you're putting the website up, I would ask the people in the room now, if you have got any questions, just to put them into Slido, and then I can put them to Julie after we've been through the survey results.
Great. Okie dokie. So let's just see. So I'm normally struggling with this. So let's just see how we go. I'm not trying to waste too much time, guys. So here we are. So I just wanted to give you a feel for what the site looks like. Just a quick, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah, superb. So if I try and make that a little bit bigger, I think I'm going to regret that, guys. Wait 2 seconds. Right, so here we are. So you will recognize everything I've just introduced here. So you've got a way of going through, how do you do this? You can find out a bit more about the authors and contributors. Then this sort of top bucket that we looked at is in here, designing. This was the foundational principles to the left and the managing one to the right. And this is the latest research, and we will be completing and updating this. Really important to remember, this is a live website. So all three organizations have committed to updating, maintaining, and adjusting the site. So all of your comments, all of your observations, there is a specific feedback form that you can give to the bottom of the site, where you can get in touch with us and tell us what you've spotted, mistakes, things that you don't think make quite sense, all of that sort of stuff. We'd be loving to hear from you. It is about creating something that is useful for us all. So if you go and sort of click here, you'll get to the sitemap. I love this one best, but not everybody likes it this way. But for example, you can click on design approaches, and that will get you into very specific bits. You'll then get an overview. You can jump directly into specific topics. I wanted to show you some of those technical levels. So, hopefully you'll be able to read something that is quite straightforward. All of those are cross-linked. So when we say something around it, we'll say, listen, this is a really good a reference to have a look at for further detail. And then it really sort of tries to sort of guide you to the right places of where you recognize this one. We've just talked about that. So this is the various design options that are available to you depending on how complex your project is and what you're trying to use. And again, cross-referencing to places where you might find interest. I'm just going to jump into something where I know there's really lots and lots of stuff to unclick. So I'm just going to one specific section here, which will just be around, let me just go to this one just because there is lots and lots of things to unclick here. So, so for example, reaction to fire performance, you get explained how that all works. How do we know what we get declared, where it goes? And then you might say, okay, all super good. I get that. I get the principle of that, but I'd like to see it specifically for specific products that I want to be using. And so you can unclick a little bit more detail and then get some information on that. And then similarly, some cross-referencing that you can just jump to, and then, some really detailed information to bring out should you wish to find out a bit more, but also realizing that you might be already quite competent in this area and just want to get a bit more information. I think my sort of advice would be, if you read anything, you sort of think, I'm wondering what that relates to, that's always a good time to sort of speak to others, but also to collaborate and sort of dive a bit deeper to get sort of more information. Some really good industry guidance notes, always cross-linked here where it's relevant, so you can find yourself around and get quite a quick overview quite quickly. I'm going to stop sharing here. So if we just have enough time, and I know there's already some questions coming, which is brilliant.
Okay, yes, there are. There are people putting questions in the chat column, which I know is the usual way we use Teams. But could I ask you folks to put those questions on Slido? Because by doing so, we can then transfer the question to the screen and everyone can see the question. So if you've posed a question in the chat box, would you kindly go to Slido and put it in there? That would be helpful. So, Julie, before we get to the questions, let's have a look at the surveys, shall we?
Yeah,
let's
good.
Get your comments on the results. So, could we have the first question up, John? I think we've had a good response. I think Howard got his wish of a 50% response. We've got 95 people in the room, 45 have responded, so not quite 50%, but near as damn it is to swearing. So do you feel well informed about fire safety when using and designing with timber? What's the response? So about 2/3 to 1/3. Is that about what you expected, Julie?
No, it's brilliant. I'm pleased to see that. Again, it'll be great to see where that comes from. But yeah, that's great news. Of course, we'd love that to always be higher, and also for everybody that said no, that's also really important to hear. And again, we hope that some of that website will work, and some of those detailed questions coming in already show me that there's really scope to work together to ensure that we can provide information that is accessible and helpful to people. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
And hopefully the Fire Hub will actually help inform.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have the flexibility, like often with a piece of written documentation that's published, things happen and you find yourself. And so hopefully by having a really regular review intervals, this site can actually be a place where we can highlight where things might not quite work or there's confusion and work that out, but also to update and complement things and add things that people think would be useful to know more about.
Okay. Thank you. So let's have question 2, John, shall we? Where do you generally obtain your information from? Gosh. Well, I'm glad to see the STA features strongly in there.
Great. Yes.
That's really good to see. Obviously, also TRADA, TUK, which is now one in the same, of course.
Well, that is superb. I really, this is most helpful, and I'm really grateful for everybody putting that together and putting that in. That is brilliant, because actually what it shows as well is it shows this mix between standardized information or standards, which I can see, and then also what I would call industry information that's trying to put that into perspective and trying to explain, and then really the way that the supply chain comes through as well between manufacturers, consultants, and supply chain. Yeah, really, really good. I love the fact testing pops up, which is brilliant. So yeah, it's excellent, actually. I'm really, really, really interesting to see that. I love also that we've got My Company, which is great. You know, again, we've sort of believed the you know, the importance of sort of in company training, but also in sort of being a learning industry. I would have hoped, and again, I'm going to just do a little plug here for the collaborative reporting on structural on safer buildings, because again, there is a really good source of learning here to be had as well. But I might put a little link on that as well. But brilliant, yeah, thank you so much.
Okay,
That's
let's go to the next question then, John. Almost there, I think. Question 3, if we could, would be good. Do your projects regularly consider
great.
Hang on, that is that.
Oh, that's still the well-informed.
Question 1.
Yeah.
We're back to the beginning, John.
Yeah,
you
nearly
feel
were there.
well informed about how to consider fire safety.
Good,
so
yeah.
Again, it's it's a moving feast, Julie, at the moment.
That's good. That's good. I love it.
But again, it was the same sort of proportion, wasn't it? About 2/3 to 1/3 feeling well informed. Is there any way we can get the questions to hold, John?
Next, they've been a bit funny at the moment.
This is good.
Technology's been a bit funny.
Yeah, excellent. So fire does feature.
I think we're saying, you know, around about the same proportion, 2/3. So it's probably the same people then, I would think, if I was a guessing man. So and let's have question 4 up, shall we?
Yeah, I think John is struggling slightly.
And where do you generally?
It's struggling at the moment. Apologies, the technology's been a bit funny.
Okay. Well, it's keeping us on our toes this afternoon, John.
I know. So that one there, that was question number 1. Question number 2. Question number 3.
Yep.
Is that the same? No, it's been a bit funny.
Okay.
I think you had the last one, which is the biggest barriers. That was the last one. The biggest barriers you see.
We got one with barriers there, John. That would be quite interesting to see.
It's quite interesting. Fire featured. I sort of caught a quick glimpse of it. Fire featured, but also water and durability. I think I saw popping up. Yeah.
Okay. I think what we'll do, we'll move on to the questions. We've got some in Slido. I'll do those first.
Yeah.
Carl asks a question which I think is relatively easy for you to answer. Is there a way to get notified of updates to certain sections?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So what we're going to be, it's one of the feedbacks we've already had, and we're going to be implementing, and this is a way of staying in touch. And so we will be able to explore ways of giving you updates. First of all, when we're posting new things and something is happening, so you can get an alert. And then also to sort of just give you a quick run up on highlights. So yeah, that's coming. So thank you for that comment. And we love you to stay in touch. So thank you.
So the secret, Carl, is to get registered so that you receive updates.
But that's not possible at the moment. That will come soon. Yeah.
I've got an anonymous one here. You say it's a live site. How frequently will it be updated?
It's a very, very good point. So we collect feedback, and we have a yearly pattern, but there is sort of quarterly meetings in between that. And so we will be hoping to sort of look at, you know, the rate of change required, as it were. And there will also be, you'll see, increased live content around the site all the time. So we will be live to hearing feedback. I already see a couple of feedback coming through, which is brilliant. So that's the sort of stuff we're looking for, to be able to update the site and make it relevant and keep it relevant.
Okay. Another anonymous one here. Is there any information on cavity barriers within the website?
Yep.
And what is required in particular situations? Is that?
Yeah. So really, really good question. And yes, there is. And there is a specific part of the website just dedicated to cavity barriers. I think it also sort of touches, I think, on one comment I've seen coming in about, you know, which guidance to follow. So just to remind everybody, this is just to sort of really help people to orientate themselves about what are the principles, what are the things to consider when you design with timber, and you'll see then specific guidance and bits and pieces cross-referenced within the website. So if you ever spot a conflict, or you think, oh, I don't get this, why is it saying this and this saying there, then please let us know, because it is supposed to be really just not being competitive or competing opinions at all. It's really trying to help to access state of the art in the most efficient way possible.
Okay, I've got one here from Andrew Richardson. How is fire protection? Oh, it's disappeared on my phone. Let's go back. How is fire protection from above being looked at, as there is limited guidance in the standards? We're often asked to provide a rating to a floor from above.
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's not regulated as such at the moment, so we do test from one compartment to, so from compartment to another. So yeah, I think my reply at the moment, and I can we can supply a bit more information on that, is that really the ratings and everything that we see is for a specific scenario, which tends to be compartment encapsulating in rather than compartment encapsulating down. And the main reason for that is, of course, that heat will rise, and so the most critical point of the compartmentation is above.
Okay. Q&A. I think I've got one more question. If anyone else has got questions, please put them on Slido. I'm going to go to the chat box.
I can see some in the chat. Yeah, I can see some.
I'll go to that in a minute. There's one more here, anonymous. I'm interested in timber frame. Does the TDUK information differ, signpost, or supersede the STA guidance available on the website? I.e., what is the go-to? Well, I think I'm right in saying, Julie, I can answer that. We've incorporated the best practice guidance from all organizations, haven't we, including
that's it. So there shouldn't be any competing or new or this is endorsed and this isn't stuff. It is really about trying to signpost what is there, how do the things differ potentially. However, I will say, if for whatever reason there is confusion or there is a perceived conflict seen in what is said and what is interpreted, we'd love to hear more about that, and we will look into that, because it needs clarifying then.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the idea in the 2 years I've worked with you and TDUK is that we collaborate.
Absolutely.
And we work together so that we ensure that the sector is speaking with one voice.
And also, often what I think prompted this sort of Spine website in the center is to really help orientate how some of those guides might slightly differ in the way what they're trying to explain, how that links to the overarching agnostic principle, and where other guides might sit on this, and sometimes one of the institutes, for example, STA, of course, has lots and lots, for example, on fire safety during construction, and really the site just explains how that all hangs together and where to go for this specific guidance, which is state-of-the-art guidance for the industry. If there is conflict or perceived conflict, I will follow up on this specific one, actually, Stuart, just to make sure that we don't cause any confusion there. That's not the intention.
There is a question from Stuart Delgado in the chat box,
yeah,
which you might want to cover in
yeah,
detail.
I have tried to sort of figure out what it might relate to, but Stuart, if it's all right, I would love to sort of come back to you specifically on that, just so that we can understand which one, what specifically you refer to, so we can make that clearer. We've had input from experts from across the sector, including the STA, TDUK, and others. So so that was sort of one way of trying to avoid any confusion. Sorry. But we will follow that up, Stuart.
Stuart's asking about information, isn't he? Does it differ? Signpost, yeah. So, yeah. Do you want to take that offline then?
Yep.
Yeah.
Very important. Thank you, Stuart.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just see. Is there any other that I've missed on the chat? I don't think there is. No, I don't think there is. So, has anyone got any other questions they'd like to ask? I'm on the Slido, and there don't appear to be any more on there, and then there's no more in the chat, so I think we've probably exhausted the questions. Julie,
there's one there. Look, one more. I'm just checking.
There's one more, is it? Oh yeah, there is one come in. Yeah, I do beg your pardon. Yeah. Oh, he's saying okay, catch up offline. Yeah,
it does.
Mike Ormish has come in.
Yeah.
Working on projects where fire data from testing which is great, but does the site cover more prescriptive solutions than ADB or EC5?
Yeah.
etc.
So yeah, good question, Mike. So it does a bit of both, hopefully. You know, it's not a white book where, you know, or the old white book where you could go and open up and sort of get yourself a specific setup, but it will cover specific information available around solutions that are sort of start-off solutions that you can then apply. There is quite a lot of cover around Eurocode 5. Again, watch out for this one, because of course we're through a period of imminent change on that. But again, as you know, the UK has disabled many of the annexes as part of their national implementation. But what we have provided is starting points in European practice that hopefully will allow to sort of review how are things similar, how are things different, and, you know, how does my testing information need to sort of supplement what I can see there. So we're hoping that some of that information is there and really will be helpful to get you started and informed as to what is there. Of course, always noting that it can't design for the specific application that, of course, you guys will be experts in. Yes, there is a specific chapter on barriers and junctions. Again, we've tried to link in with really latest research across Europe on that. And so hopefully you'll find that really helpful. Again, anything else that you think is really helpful and would be great to sort of see in context as part of the website, we're open to all.
Okay, thank you. I think that then exhausts all the questions. So Julie, thank you very much for giving up your time and passing on your expertise. That's very well received, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of all the audience. We had 95 people in the room, which is a pretty good house, I think. So that's good. Thank you to Howard and John for hosting us at Leaders Meets. Have we got a slide for the next webinar in October or not, folks? Just seeing if we've got one from Leaders Meets. I often do.
I don't think we have one as
No,
yet.
okay. Well, I'll tell folks then that the October webinar is on Friday the 13th. I hope that's not too ominous. And we have Tony McNally coming to talk to us on climate change solutions. So today, obviously, it's been around building safety. We move to the climate crisis agenda next month with Tony McNally. So shall we just put up the final poll then? Have we got a slide for that, Howard?
Yeah, we have. John, do you want to put the slide up for the closing poll? It's not.
It's just coming, Howard. Also,
okay.
the slides that we didn't see Andrew before.
Yeah.
Just briefly, we can just show those once before we go on to the sliding poll, the final poll. So this was the 90% of project
90% consider timber. That's great news. Yeah. The other 10%, why not? What are the largest barriers? So fire has come out there as the major one, hasn't it? No real surprises there, which is why we invited Julie along this afternoon.
Yeah, again, I find, you know, I know the team was a bit nervous about the open-ended question, but I think they're so important to have, because it's sort of, you know, about cost and design, but also about, you know, knowledge. And I think we're hoping the website will be really adding to that, and not just in piecemeal, but give a complete picture of how we design for fire safety generally, and how timber solutions can be incorporated and can be used. So brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll take those away. Actually, it's a really useful insight. Thank you to all.
Thank you. And so can we have the slide up about next month, please, John?
So the next month's
no, the feedback
presentation
survey.
on climate change.
Sorry, we haven't got next month. No, feedback survey. Let's have that up. Sorry, I meant the feedback survey.
We haven't yet received all the information, Andrew, on the other one, the next one.
Oh, right. Okay. All right.
So you should now have the feedback survey, and that is showing on your screens. I'd like to thank Judy. It was a great presentation. But with everything, let's just see what we can learn. We apologise for a bit of technical glitch with Slido. Sometimes technology lets us down. But if you could please just take a moment to fill in the feedback, that would be really good. Let's just put the questions up on the screen, John, and hopefully those in the room might just take the time to complete this. So the session held my interest is the first one, so please give us your rating on that. John, can you put the questions up? Okay, no problem. I've got them on my screen, so I'm competing them on there. I was encouraged to participate. The content was pertinent and relevant to my role at work. What I learned will help me in my role and work. I will recommend others who did not attend this session to watch the recording, and we will notify those people that did not come, as well as yourselves, as to where you can go for the recording. If you have any ideas on how you think this session could be improved, please let us know. And if there are any comments you would like to add, you can also do that. I think we have a few people who've given us feedback. So all I'd like to say is we'll leave it open for a few more minutes. I'd like to say thanks very much, and please look out. As soon as we have all the details for the next session, we will notify everyone. Julie, thanks very much for your time, and Andrew.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. And to all, have a great, safe weekend.
Yeah. See you next month.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.